Hey friends, that 80s dude here, and here is my chat with Lisa Downs, the director of the Life After series, and specifically in this video, Life After the Navigator. And make sure you stick around to the very end where we talk about the remake that's happening for Flight of the Navigator. I hope you enjoy. Hey, Lisa, there you are. How are you?
Hello. Sorry.
Hey.
We have we've got builders in the house, and so I was doing like a round of checking everything was okay, and I was like, oh my gosh. So I hope
Well,
I'm not too late.
no, you're fine. You're fine. Good to have you here. Thank you. And I just want to share with the audience that's watching right now. This is Lisa Downs. She is the director of the Life After series. If you haven't seen or have seen Life After Flash and Life After the Navigator, we're going to talk about Life After the Navigator now. But I just want to welcome you. I was telling everyone that you are in the UK, so it's about 5:30, 5:35 your time. So thank you so much for making the time to be on that 80s with that 80s dude. I appreciate that. Thank you.
You know what? This is also my first Instagram live, so I was like, I don't know what to expect. What do I press? Hashtag grandma. So I'm glad that you could do this with me.
Hey, you know what? You're not the first one. I've had several chats with folks that haven't been on Instagram Live, but it's such a simple thing to get on, right? I mean, it's pretty easy.
It's just one click. Anyone can use it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, glad to have you on. I know that we don't have a lot of time. You're very busy, and I want to respect your time. So let's get right to it. I'm going to go ahead and just sort of talk to you about your Life After series, ask you a few questions. I'm going to ask the audience to put some comments there below, and I'll try to read off the best questions that I can find. Otherwise, it's just going to be you and I doing an exchange. But I'm so happy to have you here because the first one that I saw, obviously, was your first doc, which was Life After Flash, which is fantastic with Sam Jones.
Thank you.
And I highly recommend it. And I think I saw it on Amazon Prime. And I just loved it. I love the concept. I love the idea. And I just thought, hey, what's next in this series? And at that time, I didn't know much about you. Obviously, I've had time to research, and I see that you're really all into this Life After series. And so I want to just, first of all, start with this. I'm so happy that you did Life After the Navigator because it is like a absolute beautiful film, childhood film that I grew up watching. I mean, I was 10 years old when the film came out in 86. And I fell in love with the film like everyone has, you know?
Yeah.
And it's such an endearing film even today. Like if you ask anyone on the streets, like, have you seen Flight of the Navigator? Chances are it doesn't matter what decade you were born, you've probably seen it or know someone or you've heard of it, right?
But it is like it's like the underdog, though. It's like everyone knows Never-Ending Story and Goonies, and Flight of the Navigator is the underdog that no one really talks about. But when you mention it, they're like, "Oh my God, yes!"
Yeah, absolutely. I think you nailed it. You're absolutely right because people talk about the Goonies, they talk about like Back to the Future and things like that. But it is definitely like a dark horse film. It is. But if you've seen it, you fall in love with it, you know. And so that being said, I just want to say this to everyone that's watching. I want to start with this. I want to say, you know, the doc is so good, and it's so like poignant and spot on and just sort of humbling. I just love how vulnerable Joey is in the documentary, and I found myself getting like super emotional during several times in the film, you know, and I'm sure that you, as the director, in speaking with Joey, how did this doc come about, number one, and how were you throughout the doc? It must have been an emotional experience for you too.
It was a really amazing experience. You know, how lucky even just to be in the room with people that were in these films that you grew up with. But when I started Flash, I didn't think of it being a series. I didn't intend for it to be this whole nostalgia Life After series. And halfway through, because I'm in England, you really have to try and make the most of going over to America because it's expensive to do these shoots. So I was like, well, wouldn't it be great if we could maybe start shooting something else at the same time? And I was trying to think of films that I loved, Googled Flight of the Navigator, literally as simple as Googled Flight of the Navigator, Googled Joey, read on Wikipedia what he had been through, and then just said, I would love to tell his story. Like, where had he been since 96, which was his last credit on IMDb? And then you see what he's done and his news stories. So I really researched the BC Correctional Center rules, reached out to them, managed to track down his information, sent him a note in the correctional center, and then he had his mum call me because he couldn't work the phone out, bless him. And so she called, and so she gave me his address to write to, and then we became pen pals.
Awesome.
And he is the most, like, everything you see, same with Sam, like how they come across in the films is how they are. He's the most amazing person. Yeah, so we became pen pals, and he was in jail for about 6 months while we were writing back and forth. And I think during that time, we really developed this trust with each other, and we were just talking about life and what we could do with the film and his music and incorporating that into it. So by the time he got out, I had sent him a camera, and this was the end of 2017. I sent him a camera to do some voice, some pista cameras, which is what the documentary opens with. So I hadn't met him when he filmed that, which I think was invaluable, all those clips that he sent. And then I met him about 6 months after he got out. And so when we started filming, we had already developed this friendship through letters and Skype that we just instantly hit it off. So even though with Sam, it took a few interviews to get to the really personal information because I wanted to build that trust with Joey, that interview where he tells everything, I hadn't met him in person for maybe 2 hours at that point.
Wow.
It all just came out. And it was just amazing to be, not only talk about his journey, but to be on the journey with him. So you can see the film, he looks different across the arc of the documentary because we shot it over 2 or 3 years. And so we're on this journey of recovery with him. And as a documentary, there is still that element of, I don't know how it's going to end. You know, it wasn't the first time he'd been in jail. He had been in rehab numerous times. You want to hope for the best, but you don't know what's going to happen. But he knew. He felt different this time, which was really good, but you just don't know what's going to happen. And so there was that kind of willy won't he, but it was the most amazing experience. And then we had the Navigator reunion, and I had to pinch myself because Veronica
I saw that towards the end of the film. It was like the documentary was building to that, you know. Lisa, I just want to reset for the audience. Hey, everyone that's watching, it's Joey Cramer we're talking about from Flight of the Navigator, okay, the 1986 film. I think somebody dropped Joey Lawrence. It's not Joey Lawrence. it's Joey Cramer, yeah. And so if you're watching right now live, we're talking about Life After the Navigator with the director Lisa Downs here. So she's in England right now. Later in the day for her, but yeah, Lisa, that is so awesome. And I knew that you were going to build towards the reunion, which was awesome there towards the end. I don't want to spoil any of the documentary to anyone. I just want to reiterate, if you haven't seen it, we're going to talk about where they can see it and where they should go. But let me just say this about what you just said about Joey. One of the key scenes that stood out to me was the exchange, Joey had with his father. There was a scene in the film that he talks about that, his biological father, and what his father said to him. And as a father of 4, I have 4 sons, various ages. I couldn't believe that a father would say that to his son. And so I found myself, well, first of all, it must have been really hard for you to hear that. And for me, it was just a very emotional moment. I think I paused the film for a minute, and I just had to kind of rattle myself. And I'm not a super emotional guy, but when it comes to my kids, I'm just a little bit more, attuned, I guess, to that emotion. And it just was so interesting how, when you look at the span of the film, how Joey, how he dealt with that adversity and that challenge, and how it sort of transpired after hearing that from his father, and how things happen, just shows you the importance of relationships as parents to our children and things like that. And it must have been a really racking thing to hear for you.
It was hard. And, we spent a lot of time with his mum. She's such a lovely woman. She's coming to stay with me a couple of months. We became really close. And when you see how caring his mum is, throughout the documentary, she probably talks about things that she did that maybe other people would think is enabling. If you can hear footsteps, my dog has just come in.
Your dog is so cute, by the way. Your dog is so cute.
I know, she's the little chihuahua. And so, hang on, I'll pick her up. This is Meg, everyone.
Hey,
Hi.
Meg, how you doing?
I know. So some people had reactions that, well, maybe she enabled it a little bit, but she always meant well. And I think he grew up in an environment that wasn't your usual environment anyway. He wasn't given a life straight away with that kind of mum and dad experience. And the dad had a lot of issues of his own. Joey spoke a lot about it, but I didn't feel like it was right for the film to go into too many details. But his
Sure.
dad was, you know, he was an addict himself. He was responsible for Joey even getting arrested for the first time because he had sent Joey to go and get drugs and
Wow.
some for him,
Oh,
and so it's just this nature versus nurture, but
sure.
he came out of it the other side, and to be able to have had all these things happen with his dad and
Yeah.
still be able to forgive him, I just think goes to, like, shows what kind of person Joey is. And you
For sure.
do, like, when he tells you those stories, I didn't know any of that. You obviously can Google some things, but you can't Google everything. And just,
Right.
it is heartbreaking, but you see where he's come and you're just so
Yes.
proud of him for it. And I think
Absolutely.
what's
And
lovely is the relationship with his mum is really, really strong now, which is nice.
yeah, and I'm glad you said that because when I was watching it, I was trying to form my opinions about his mother, but she is a really lovely lady. I did research her afterwards before we spoke, and I'm just glad he has that relationship with his mom. And yeah, I mean, it was one of those situations where I think that you did such a wonderful job of just putting in enough to kind of set up what Joey, the sort of relationship he had with his father, and then you're looking at his journey throughout. But I want to say, for those of you in the audience that haven't seen, those that are going to watch this after I post it, that when you look at Joey in the film, Lisa, you did such a great job of showing. I knew you shot this over a 2 to 3 span, which, by the way, takes like crazy patience for you and planning. And
Yeah,
just seeing his progression throughout, just the way he changes, like by the end, he's almost got like this early Tom Selleck look with the mustache.
he
I
does.
mean, and,
It was November, but I
yeah.
think he was rocking it, so I thought he should have kept it. But yeah, he's a totally different person.
Absolutely. And you know what? He looks so much like by the end of the film, like the young Joey in the movie that I was just like, man, you can just tell that he's there and he just looks transformed. And that's so
Yeah.
awesome. I mean, I really think you captured that really, really well. And I know that I know before the end of the interview, I wanted to say just thank you at how good of a job that you did, because I'm sort of a documentary guy. I watch so many biographical documentaries and documentaries just in general that I'm just a huge fan of your series. And we're going to talk about what you have coming up next. But I want to say one other thing about this documentary. It's not just about Joey. It's that you're showing some behind the scenes of the film as well, which I'm a huge behind the scenes guy. Like if you're an 80s kid, you love your behind the scenes stuff for films because you just want to like know that you're kind of like in the in, and you want to be able to share that like in conversations when you're having drinks socially with friends.
Exactly.
But I just loved what you did. You poured just enough behind the scenes into the doc. And I just wanted to see, was there anything that you learned that was new for the behind the scenes work of the film that you had no clue?
I mean, to be honest, a lot. I had never seen any makings of Flight of the Navigator before, so I didn't really know how it was made.
Yeah.
I was one of the kids. I was like, how do they do that with the steps? I don't understand.
I know.
I didn't study special effects, so even to know that they hired a real magician makes total sense.
Yeah.
But I never would have picked that but they created a lot of the technology with that kind of metal melting, ended up being used for Terminator 2, and just, I mean, so much of it.
Yeah.
And I think what's nice too is the relationship between the cast as well. But just to like be there with Tim and Tony, who did the puppets, and
Yes.
he's like doing
I
the
love
Puck
that. That
Mary's
was so
voice,
cool.
and he's the voice of Johnny Five, and yeah, I mean, 98% was new for me with the
That's
making.
awesome.
So it was a real experience.
That's great. And what caught me is I had done research on Flight of the Navigator quite a bit before because I've done some posts on Flight of the Navigator in the past, and But one thing that stuck out to me was I didn't know that Joey was actually an extra in the Never Ending Story, which is like your next thing, right? And
I didn't know that till we
how
were there.
crazy
We
is
were
that?
walking past. I was like, this
Yeah.
gas town looks really familiar. And he's like, I was
Yeah.
in Never Ending Story. I was like, what?
Yeah, he was not only was he an extra, but he was a stand-in for one of like the bad kids that picked on the character in the film at the end, running towards the trash can, and that's crazy.
He's the one that flies. You see it in the documentary, but it's his little body that flies into the building.
Yeah, how awesome!
Dumpster.
I just love that. I love that. So it was great to see that. That's the other thing. You learn something new in watching the documentary as well. Let me ask you something. I know we're kind of running shorter on time here, but I wanted to ask you, what was your best experience in making Life After the Navigator?
I have to say, I mean, everything, but which is such a cop-out answer. But if I had to pick one, I would have probably said, I will say the reunion. So the reunion for me, I didn't really know what to expect. Some people hadn't confirmed beforehand. I was like, please Clifton Young be there. I really wanted him to be there, but he hadn't said yes yet. And Randall was really good. He came on as an EP. So he just emailed everyone. And I wasn't sure who would attend. And just to be there as like a fly on the wall where everyone's getting back together and Randall's like, this is your little brother Albie, and then you kind of you obviously you see their faces are still the same, and so you're in the film, and it's the closest that I got, you know, because you grow up with these films, you want to be a Goonie, you want to go and have a popcorn and go into space, and it was the closest that I've been where I was like surrounded by the Freemans going, I feel like this is kind of a childhood massive tick box because I am like
awesome
with everyone.
Yeah.
Just hanging out. And so we interviewed everyone in 15-minute blocks, but that was a whole day, and we had lunch, and you know, it was a really surreal. It still doesn't feel real. Like I watch it. I'm in the documentary taking the picture of them, and it doesn't feel like it's me.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. And I think that reunion was in LA, right? Was it LA?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's only an hour and a half from where I live. And it's funny because I just saw Joey. I communicated with Joey last night, and I just said, hey, are you going to make it to the live session? He's like, I'm going to do my best. I'm just settling in. And I saw that in his stories, he'd just flown into California. So my goal is down the line. I know Joey's really busy, but I want to try to get him on the show as well and chat about it. Yeah. And I was going to ask you, have you heard about a remake being made for Flight of the Navigator?
You know what? It has been, as Americans say, blowing up my phone. It's not a British phrase, but I really like it. There have been a number of stories about remakes, as you get with, you know, Flash Gordon was supposed to have a few remakes by now. And I feel like this is the one that has had the most press, with someone directly announcing that they're going to be involved in the remake or reimagining.
Yes.
You know what? It's such a bittersweet thing. I would love Joey to be in it. Joey would love Joey to be in it. Everyone would love Joey to be in it. Everyone would feel the same. You want them to do it well, but obviously the younger generation, a lot of them wouldn't have seen the original. So as long as I feel like if they can do something that kids can find iconic in 30 years, if anything, now there's so much content, but then people who love the original, there's enough of an homage to it, and they use physical puppets or CG, you know, models and the techniques that the original used.
Yes.
Maybe kids today will be like, no, I want computers, but it's such a hard thing to be excited about.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I'll tell you this. I would consider myself a huge movie buff. I could drop lines on the fly, as they say, for pretty much any movie in the 80s. I literally watch an 80s movie almost every single day, or rewatch. Or in the background, as you can see, I've got 3 TVs in my office. So in my studio. So
I love the posts about your studio. I always see them with your TV and your VHS. It's brilliant.
Thank you. And so I gotta say this. Number one, if Hollywood is listening, Disney, I know Disney owns the film.
In North America. So this remake will probably be only on Disney Plus in North America. They don't own the rights to the rest of the world. So people in England won't get to see it.
Oh, wow. Well, I got to say this. Joey's got to be in the movie 100%. And I thought, wouldn't it be awesome if he was the dad, right?
What's really funny is that he was writing script ideas with Mark H. Baker, who obviously wrote the original Flight of the Navigator, and that thing to make it a female lead, and he would be the dad. So
yeah, that would be awesome. And the other thing too is I know that I saw an interview that Joey was on, and they asked him, what he thought about a remake, and he wasn't very excited about a remake, but I think what he said is exactly how I feel about taking an 80s movie that's so beloved like Flight of the Navigator. I think that you have to reimagine, like you have to do a sequel, pay heavy homage to the original. And I agree with you. They've got to use, especially with kids my age, we want practical effects. We want them done better than in the past, but we're not like super into CGI. Like we like creative practical effects. So I definitely am excited about it, but I'm cautious. But I will say this, Disney, you better call Joey. All right. So
yes. Well, he's in LA for something else, but he's trying to get a meeting with Bryce Dallas Howard because it, coincides with him.
He's got a meeting with her?
Well, no, he's trying to get one.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's great.
He's in LA anyway, and so if anyone is watching this that knows her, but I mean, how could she not?
I'm gonna give Kathleen Kennedy a call. She's gonna call you. All right. So
on the phone, Frank Marshall. Hey,
I know. That's awesome. Well, look, this has been so fun. I just want to tell you, I want to tell the audience and just reiterate to the audience, you've got to see Life After the Navigator. I know that before we let you go, first of all, before I let you go, I want to talk about your next steps. And then also I want to say, where can people what's the best place you want to send them to watch Life After the Navigator?
So lifeaftermovies.com is our website. In America and the UK, it's on Amazon, and I think Tubi in America. But so Amazon and then lifeaftermovies.com, I sell the Blu-rays, so they all get shipped from me and personally delivered. So
that's wonderful. And everybody, I'm going to include Lisa's link for lifeaftermovies.com as soon as I repost this in IG Live and do my magic and all that. But please do go visit her site. And then also, if you're unable to and you want to see it on Amazon, you can see it on Amazon. But that being said, I want to talk about Life After Atreyu. I know you're working on that. Are you in the midst of it, or are you in pre-production? What are you?
No, totally. Being indie, there is no pre-production. You write an email and you film someone, and suddenly you're in production. No, I filmed a few interviews already. We filmed Lamal. We filmed Klaus Doldinger, who's a composer in Hamburg. Yes. We filmed Colin Arthur, who designed and built Falkor, the racing snail, Rockbiter. So I have a little bit of Falkor on my desk downstairs.
Awesome.
I love it.
Yeah.
We filmed with Noah and Tammy at a Comic-Con, and then lockdown happened. We were supposed to go and do a huge RV road trip with Noah across America, which we still will when everything opens up. And next month I'm going to go to Munich to film at the studio. They have the full-size Falkor there. Jost Bacano, who shot it. Herman Beagle, who wrote it. So
awesome.
Lots of interviews coming up that I'm super excited about.
I got to tell you, Lisa, please reach out to me if we can help you in any way. And I love what you're doing. Thank you so much, because I'm just like reliving my youth, and anyone that's watching this is sort of like looking back and just seeing all the behind the scenes and just the personal stories. What you're doing is so important, and I want to be behind it.
Thank you. I'm reliving my youth as well. I think that's why I'm stuck doing it.
That's so awesome. That's so awesome. And then hopefully maybe next time you're in LA, let me know. I'd love to drive by there and at least high five you or something, or elbow bump you or something.
Fist bump. As soon as borders open up, LA is the first on our list.
Awesome.
So
awesome. Well, listen, thank you so much. I'm so pumped about what you're doing. And I'll tag you once I repost this, and please stay in touch, and I'll let you know when Joey comes on. All right.
Oh, I'd love to. Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye.
Bye, everyone. Bye-bye.